What's going on, everyone? This is Brian Turner here. We are in another episode of Season 5 of the No Stress Midwest podcast. Season 5 is our coaches edition, so I've been fortunate enough to get coaches from like all around the country, all different levels, MLS down to club, high school, and everything in between. Today, we've got Debbie Pekel, who's going to be our guest today. Debbie, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am doing good. I'm really excited that you agreed to be on the podcast. Just like a little forewarning, listeners, I definitely like cold called, if you will. Debbie, we were following each other on Instagram. She's in the coaching world, and I was like, "Hey, you should really think about being on my podcast. I'd really appreciate it." She said yes, luckily, and now here we are. So, Debbie, thank you for that. Where are you calling in from?
I am currently in Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville. Okay. What's there? Why are you in Greenville?
So I actually moved a little over a month ago, to coach at Bob Jones University, which is a D3 university here in Greenville. But
Okay.
before that, I was in Michigan, and this was kind of a whirlwind kind of transition and relocation. But yeah, outside of that, there's some really pretty mountains and hiking trails, and downtown Greenville is actually a really, really cool downtown. So we
All
have that
right.
happening for us as well.
It's quite I'm sure a culture shock, quite a temperature, all of that shock from Michigan to South Carolina. Um, Talk to me. The Southern hospitality, is that a real thing?
It is.
Okay.
People
I'm
are
glad to
almost
hear.
too nice. I thought like from being a Michigander slash Midwest, I thought I was, understood niceness and hospitality, but they take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Uh,
The
I almost
sweet
feel
tea,
like I'm rude sometimes.
the sweet tea, are you in? Are you on? Are you on
Oh,
board?
it's good. Yes. And the
Okay, good.
barbecue is great, but I know like Kansas City has great barbecue too. So,
I'm glad. Listen, that was perfect because I was getting ready to. I was like, "Oh man, should I say something?" No, but that's cool. I spent some time in North Carolina for a few years, in college, so I'm really familiar with the Southern hospitality, the sweet tea that gives you diabetes
oh
every sip, but it's worth it.
yes.
So, all right, we're not here to talk about, unfortunately, sweet tea, even though I could talk about it for a while. Let's kind of jump into things, okay? So, you mentioned you just moved to South Carolina not too long ago, from Michigan, where you were doing some coaching, I'm assuming. Before we get even to the coaching aspect, talk to us on why you became a coach. What was your playing background like? Did playing kind of lead you into coaching, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think for most people, they played the game at some level. So I played growing up all the way from recreational to little travel leagues in my area, and then played in high school and decided to go to a smaller Christian school in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I was able to play both soccer and basketball there. So I wanted to ultimately be like a small fish in a big pond. And so I played in a newer program there and played all 4 years and got introduced actually into coaching, finishing up my sophomore season,
Okay.
and met a coach in a like indoor church league and asked if I wanted to help him on his varsity girls high school team. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And was able to go undergo that season with him and absolutely loved it. And then from there on was just trying to figure out the coaching world and the pathway of what I needed to do, licensing, all of that to kind of make it more of a viable career. And
For sure.
really got into it after I finished playing my senior year and then got on to kind of coaching college after that. But yeah, played 4 years of soccer and did all right in a small program. So it
I mean,
was
you
a
did
yeah, it was a good
soccer and basketball. So, I mean, being a collegiate athlete in itself is hard. You're doing two sports. So, on top of school, right, and trying to have a social life and sleep. So, I know one of those things, maybe two of them, was struggling probably, but you made it through.
Mhm.
You touched on a good point of like you started coaching and you were just kind of like overwhelmed with, all right, where do I go from here? How do I make this real? Like, is it licenses? Is it a program? Is it club? Is it high school? Is it college? You know, there's so many questions, and I feel like there's not really an answer as far as like, hey, if you want to coach college, this is what you have to do. If you want to coach high school, this is what you have to do. Professional, this is what you have to do. I feel like we all have our own like experiences, and like you're coaching college now. College is not something I've coached yet, right? And I know people that have started coaching college like right when they finished college. Um, so I feel like, you know, we all have these different experiences that take us to that level. But before we move on, what's one thing you learned about trying to make coaching a viable career? Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's
But
good.
I think I mean, if I could look back over the last 6 years, there's things where I'm like, I could have maybe bypassed that, you know, program or that experience for this, and maybe it would have gotten me to this point maybe sooner. But we don't
Yeah.
know that at the end of the day. A lot of it is just learning from the coaches around you, learning the programs and the different levels that you're at. And I can take a lot of good and maybe not so good things from that and tailor it into uh, my continuation as a coach. But yeah, um I
You've done a
just
lot. You've done a lot, right? And you've
yeah,
done
I've
club, you've done high
yes.
school,
hmm
you're doing college.
And I did
Um,
semi-pro the last 2 summers, arena soccer this last winter. So it's been fun,
you've
but
done a
a
lot.
lot.
And the semi-pro, was that USL, UWS? What was the
UWS. Yeah.
UWS? Okay. So you've wow. I mean, and I think I remember you telling me that our last call, but so you've really hit on a lot of levels, and I know one of the guests we had on, Lisa, she's with the youth national team now, but she was a collegiate coach. And she mentioned like one bit of advice that she wished she would have had when she was younger, and I think it kind of touches along with you, which with what you said is like knowing when to say no to opportunities. And like as a young coach, and I've been there, you say yes to everything because it's like, oh, I want the experience, I want the experience, I don't want to let you down. This could set me up, this could. And then
hmm
you look back and like you said, you're like, man, that was just like one year of me just running around in a circle, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So okay, so you mentioned that you're at a Christian, or you played at a Christian school, and you're currently coaching at one now, right? So is that one of the values that like you really want to kind of stay in that realm? Is it just it's just so happened that that's how it's gone, or kind of how is that path going?
Yeah, so I originally began coaching at the college I played for as assistant coach, and enjoyed that experience of being in a kind of like-minded culture and environment
Mhm.
where we were able to kind of use faith integrated into the principles of the game
Yeah.
and all of that. And then I left and went on to be a grad assistant at really not a Christian institution, and then went on and did club, and that's a whole different realm. And so was out of kind of that Christian environment, so to speak, for a little bit, and I gained a lot of knowledge and experience through that. But I think for me, when I moved back to Michigan a little over a year and a half ago, I was missing kind of that kind of familiarity and a sense of a more nurturing environment that could feed me at that spiritual level, but also allow me to share kind of a big component of who I am with my players, if
Right.
it made sense. So yeah, I was hoping to kind of integrate myself back into a similar culture or environment. And I was doing that at the high school level. I was coaching at it and working at a Christian high school back in Michigan. And then this opportunity presented itself, and I knew of the institution and the program from years past, and didn't think it was going to happen, but it was really the only program that my eyes were fixed on.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I was content with doing what I was doing in Michigan and staying there for a while, and somehow it worked out, and it's been a really great change in culture here with the coaching staff and the players, and it's something that I really really enjoy being around. Coaches and players that have a similar faith perspective. Um,
That's awesome.
No Stress Midwest has partnered with TechBall to become the Midwest host site for TechBall official league play and tournaments. On Thursdays from 8 to 10 p.m. and Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m., No Stress Midwest will be hosting TechBall pickup play at the soccer lot. Swing by and see what all the fun's about. To stay up to date on all information regarding Tech Ball through No Stress Midwest, visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/techball. You'll be able to see all of the upcoming events we have, such as league play, tournaments, and any changes to pick up.
And I mean, and I feel like we all as coaches have to find the right environment, right? And sure, sometimes you just need to coach, right? Like sometimes it's not going to be the right environment. We're all looking for the right environment, but I feel like there are some things that maybe will mean more to us than to another coach. And I think that that's really dope of you that you understand that at such a young age and early on in your coaching career. To make that change and move halfway across the country for it, right? Like that's pretty dope. So, and I kind of talked on it earlier. You've been at all levels, familiar with coaching on the club, the high school, the college, the semi-pro. You've worked with players from, ones that probably shin guards go above their knees to ones whose shin guards are like the size of like, my fingers here. What are some of the things that you would say are the same and some of the things that are different per team, right? Like, I mean, of course, what's the same? Everyone wants to score. Everyone wants to win games. That stuff's fun. But what are some things, maybe even if it's not what you see, but as a coach, how do you coach, high school, club, college player? How do you kind of differentiate between all of those?
Yeah, that was a balance I had to kind of be in and navigate through, because at first I thought it would be kind of easy to take on the same coaching style or structures and basically reuse it and use it in the same training sessions, especially if one was after the other, which was most of my evenings. Almost would have 2 or 3 different training sessions with vast different ages. And I think the similarities outside of the principles of the game, right, and the how soccer works and things of that nature. But I think at the end of the day, you just had a coach on your last episode, Jordan, and he mentioned it. At the end of the day, they're all human, right? They're players, but they have a human perspective. They all need to be treated with value and respect, and really be able to get at the heart of who they are as both a player and person. And I think across all levels, it's just, as a coach, how can I understand where they're at developmentally? And then how can I best communicate and structure an environment where I can get the most out of them?
Yep.
As a person first, and then as a player from that relationship building and environment that's nurturing to not only the skill sets that's needed in a training environment, but also where they're at in life. And you could take a U8, right? It's a very different training session than, a semi-professional team. We're not going to be doing what we're doing with, college age players. The U8, very different. They're always going to be on the ball. They're always going to be manipulating the ball, and maybe some 1v1s, 2v1s, but that's probably the extent of it at a 4v4 format. Whereas, you're not going to be doing that with college age players every training session to get ready for a match. It's very different, but similarities is kind of how coaches can guide and mentor them in communication and kind of creating that relationship to get a little bit more out of them. And then like high school age is very different. You have them for 2-3 months and that's it. And then a recycled new players come in. So you don't have the luxury of having all these really great detailed training sessions that are going to bring you to a certain objective over time. It's like I have 2-3 practices with them and we're playing three games for 3 months and that's it. So you approach that very differently than a college setting where you have kind of a similar format, but then you also have spring season and you can retain players a little bit more too. So and then semi-pro is very different because you're bringing in all these different players from different backgrounds and coaching styles. And how can you get them all to be functional together and maintain a sense of competitiveness, but also it's in the peak of summer. So how can you kind of balance their lifestyle as well? So it's just very different. And I'm still kind of learning as I was going through it last year of really how to perfect or be more successful in those certain formats.
For sure. Well, and the semi-pro, and I was in the USL 2 this summer, and one thing that I saw was that team isn't their priority, right? These players, their priority team is their college team, and they're just doing this to stay fit, get some touches in, right? Play some games. So it's like, how do you get them to want to be there while still giving them a summer of a of a college kid.
Mhm.
So it's definitely a fine line. And Coach Jose Mourinho said this quote that I really really like, and I think it goes along with what you're saying. Is he says, "I treat every player the same, but I treat every person different." And I think that was really deep when I first heard that, because he's like, every player wants playing time. Every player wants to be on the field. They want to play their best. They want to contribute to a win, contribute to success, all of that, But then after that, we're people. And like you said, what are you going through? You could have had a death at home. You could be, your whatever it is going on, and that can affect you as a person. But like, you still have to understand, differentiate between, hey, I know that like you're our best goal scorer, but I also see that you're going through some stuff off the field, and let's try to address that so we can make sure when you're on the field you're giving us everything.
Mhm.
um so Debbie, I do some part-time work at United Soccer Coaches, so pretty familiar with some of the programs and things that are going on. They have this program for our listeners called the 30 under 30, and that is, as you could probably guess, the top 30 coaches under the age of 30, and they do one every year. Debbie was selected, so we're just going to go on 22, 23. So you were 21, 22 this
Mhm.
past year. You were selected. How did that come about? Kind of talk to us about, like, did you apply? Did you know about it? Did a coach tell you about it? Once you were in and you were selected, what was that experience like, with courses, mentors? Just kind of tell everyone about what it's like to be selected as one of the top 30 coaches under the age of 30.
Yeah, it was a small kind of process. I actually didn't know about it until 2019 when I was finishing up my second year as a grad assistant. And I knew of USSF for at least, like, I think at that point I had my E license when they first had that, and then switched
Yeah.
over to grassroots. And then vaguely kind of knew about United Soccer Coaches, but not much. A coach at the time mentioned about the 30 under 30 program, and I should apply for it. And I'm like, well, that seems like a waste. I barely have any experience or any licensing that's going to make me stand out. But I applied in 2019, didn't hear anything back. But then with the convention, they actually have scholarships that are awarded to a certain amount of coaches as well. So I applied for that as a follow-up, and actually was awarded as a recipient of a convention scholarship. So I was able
And
to
that
go
was
to
Baltimore, right?
Baltimore 2020. Yep. So I was able to go. That was my first convention experience. Basically, everything was paid for. A little different approach to the 30 under 30, but still was able to get luncheons and be able to kind of network with some college coaches and people within United Soccer Coaches. So that was a great experience. And then in 2020, applied for 30 under 30, didn't get it. I think at that point it was supposed to be in Anaheim, and I was living then in Newport Beach, California. So it was only not too far.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm not going to apply for the convention scholarship. I just
Right.
got it last year. I'll just commute. And then obviously they had to cancel that because of the pandemic. But hindsight, then in 2021, applied for it a third time in a row, and was able to get it somehow. I think at that point I was able to add a little bit more experience every year, from going from just college to then club full time in California. Then in 2021 I was able to add like the UWS experience, and kind of just layer and go back to high school, so kind of layer my resume a little bit more. So then once we got accepted into the program, we were able to be matched up with a mentor. So we each get a mentor, either current college coach, they could be at a club level, they could really be at all different facets of the game, depending on what was a priority to you specifically.
Right.
And then you just kind of create a relationship and a mentor-mentee relationship with them monthly, sometimes even more than that. And then you're able to do some publications with some of your training sessions in them. And then the bigger points is the opportunity at convention to network with a lot of great coaches that have been in the game for a long time
Yeah.
outside of a free education course. So I'll be doing my advanced national right now. So because of that. So yeah, it was a great year of just kind of networking and being with other young coaches and being able to kind of hear their experiences and where they're at. And ironically, two of my 30 under 30 members were able to make a pretty high jump during that year. And I'm sure 30 under 30 had some role within them being able to jump up from one college level to another, like U of M and Grand Valley State. Two of them were able to get those really great program coaching positions. So
Right.
yeah, it was a great experience.
No Stress Midwest has partnered with mobile app DNA Soccer Lab to bring not only our expertise in training for field players to video, but also offering keeper training, sports performance work, strength and conditioning, player development, and mental performance videos to all of our athletes wanting to take their training to the next level. We even have personal development plans that we can create for those trainees. Visit more on our website at nostressmidwest.com/DNA Soccer Lab to read more.
That's awesome. And so Baltimore was your first convention. Baltimore was my second convention. So I was in Chicago the year before. I think kind of like you, I got there and I didn't know anything about United Soccer Coaches. It was in Chicago. I'm in KC, so I legit like got on the train and just went up there. Luckily, my school paid for some of the stuff. And that first like convention, I just like walked into like the convention center and I just was so shocked. I was like, look at all of these freaking coaches. Like, look at all of this soccer stuff. The exhibit hall was like, I mean, it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of like flustered. I didn't know where to start, like just like the pathway of coaching. Like I was like, there's all of these things here that I want to do and I want to do everything, but I can't. So when we went back to Baltimore, I had a year kind of under my belt, and Baltimore was, I think, a lot more strategic and specific in the events that I was trying to go to and the ceremonies and all of that. So now, like every year, and Anaheim one didn't work. And now every year it's like, okay, how can I make the most out of these 5, 6 days, knowing that like so and so is going to be here and I probably won't see them for another year.
Right.
So yeah, it's a huge networking thing if you're into networking. If you're
Right.
not, then like I mean, I don't know why you go to a convention.
Yeah.
But
Well, that was me. I was like, oh, well, it feels like it's just college coaches. And I was in that space where I was like, wasn't really entertaining that thought because I was already doing club, I was already doing high school, I was already doing UWS and then arena. And I was like, I just doesn't seem like it would be an opportunity. But I kind of wish if I would have gone back to really actually still have those networking connections. Even at that time, I didn't think I was going to go in the college space because
right,
things are funny and work out very differently. And you never know when that network or that person, that coach can come into handy. So it
yeah,
is one thing that I wish I would have been more intentional on, even as an introvert, being able to
right.
network and just kind of build that community.
Well, and the good thing is that Philly's coming up in a few months, and boom,
Mm-hmm.
networking starts there, and then I think Anaheim's the year after. Um, so let's get warm, hopefully.
Right.
All right, so you were talking about you're getting ready to start, or you are like you just started your advanced national, the United Soccer Coaches. You're kind of like me, and with U.S. Soccer, where you've been doing the licenses for. You can remember there was an E license and like an F license, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now they've kind of made it all grassroots, part one, part two. I don't quite know how they do it. But you just, or maybe recently got your C license through there. How was that experience? And do you plan on pursuing higher licenses, or was the C kind of a good ending point for right now?
Yeah, I went through the C license when I was still in California in 2020. So I began that in the fall of 2020 and um then things change. So within the whole realm of the pandemic and trying to navigate those times, the C license was extended, and we had kind of a dead space for a few months of just really not much, no meetings, anything like that. And it was a hybrid format. It was one of the first times they did a hybrid format, which I personally liked. And so I was able, after 9 months, be able to actually go in person and finish out the course. So I learned a lot, not only from like how to construct a training session and the activation phase and all of those things, but again, the networking piece was great. Yep. And just even the instructors being able to be taught and led and guided from some of the best coaches in that area. So for a while, I thought I was just going to kind of stop at the C, and then with the 30 under 30, I was like, well, I'll just do the advanced national and maybe stop there. But really, I've been really enjoying just learning and all the different education formats that is different between USF and United Soccer Coaches. So I think for me, it's to finish out the advanced national within this year and the next few months, go to the premier, and then possibly pursue the B. I'm at an institution right now that will help me pay for those, and they really believe in the education and the licensing for their coaches. So I'm grateful for that. So I want to make sure that I'm using those resources well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, shoot, the B license is expensive. They don't get cheaper, and I feel like it's kind of an oxymoron, and like coaches usually don't get paid a lot, right? So when we want to get better at what we want to do, and then you're charging, $1,000 for us to want to do that when we're making,
$1,000 for
right. I was gonna say for making $1,000 for a season. Yeah, it's definitely tough. So it's really good you're at an institution that supports that. And I look at it as like, it's just like if you wanted to get a graduate degree, or if you wanted to get your project management was a PMP something, if you want to get these extra things, right, it's going to cost money. And why is it that a company would pay for me to get my PMP, but then a club wouldn't pay for me to get my B license?
Right.
Yeah. So what's the ultimate goal then with coaching? I want to hear, I like asking, especially the younger coaches that I have on, like if I ask like a 50 or 60-year-old, maybe that answer is going to be a little different, but you've moved around. You clearly have no problem and no trouble picking up and going somewhere for the opportunity. So if somewhere in England calls, are you going across the pond? Are you going to start drinking tea? What's the goal? Ultimate.
Yeah, I could be a Ted Lasso experience. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about international, but I think if the opportunity presented itself, I mean, why not? I mean, it's just a whole different framework within football over there, and I think I would probably learn so much from that experience. I think for me, the last year and a half has been kind of settled at the collegiate level. Things can change, though. I'd like to be a head coach of my own program. And with a small experience with, like I said, my professional team, it would be fun to be able to move towards a more professional route too, whether that's USLW, whether that's NWSL, even if that were to work at some point. I mean, thinking big at the national level, even with their youth teams, that'd be great to be able to really work towards at the big stage of being able to coach at that realm. But for now, I'm really pleased with where I'm at, and hoping that I can continue just to grow as a coach and see those opportunities come to light, and being able to have the vision to know whether to say yes or no to them, like we kind of talked about earlier. So
yeah. So ultimately, look at that, and I'm glad, because for the listeners, Debbie and I spoke about this off this podcast just when we had our first initial talk, and it's good that that was an answer. I got chills hearing that, right? NWSL, U.S. women's national team, right? That's awesome. That's a goal. And I feel like no matter how lofty it is, like it doesn't matter. Like if you believe in it, like just you believe in it, and that's what matters. I've said I wanted to coach in Europe or a national team, and I get laughed at about it, but I'm like, yeah, but what happens if it does work?
Right.
Like how crazy would that be? And that's kind of what makes life fun. So all right, so we've talked about the different levels you've been a coach on, the age groups, all of that. Can you talk to us about some of your favorite moments or favorite memories that you've had? Maybe it's not like one or two, right? But or maybe it's every year when preseason starts. Preseason's always a fun time, something like that. What are some of like the top moments, the things that like you look back on and you get that little smile on your face, like, man, what a time.
Teachers, we want you. Are you a licensed teacher in the Missouri or Kansas KC metro area looking to make a couple extra dollars tutoring over the weekday and weekends? Well, No Stress Midwest is the place for you. No Stress Midwest Education is looking for teachers to help in one-on-one tutoring, small group academic enrichment, and study hall. We are looking for teachers to work on average 2 to 3 nights a week, 2 hours a night in the subject of language arts, science, math, social studies, and foreign language. If you're interested, please visit nostressmidwest.com/education and fill out an application today. Cheers.
Right. Yeah. It's a good question. I have a few, and they're very different spectrums for different reasons. So,
Okay.
I mean, you could look at the successes that you've had as a coach with a certain team. So, like this past spring, I took over a D4 Christian high school varsity program, and we were able to win conference. And it was the last time that we were going to be in this conference forever, really. And so we were able to kind of win it from having a few years of not being able to do well and actually win conference. So that was nice to be able to take in a program over and then have these girls really bought into the idea of that was their goal and to be able to achieve that. So that's just one small success and moment, whereas like we worked so hard to get to that point. It was really rewarding. And then there's moments where I was coaching U8 this past fall or following fall a year ago, and I mean, just seeing each girl score a goal and just how excited they were, and they
Oh
would
my
come
gosh, the
over
best
and be
thing
like, Coach
ever.
Debbie, did you see it? And like those moments too are just so great, very different. It's not like it's a game winner for a championship game to win a national banner. It's a random Saturday
Just
morning,
a
and
Saturday morning game,
right.
and you know what? The score is who cares?
Right. They don't even know the score half the time.
No.
So, but
Yeah.
those moments too. And then I think one was nice was when I moved from Michigan to Kentucky and I was a grad assistant. My former college that I played at and then coached at went to the national championship game, actually against Bob Jones, who I'm now coaching for.
The
Was able to
Hawks.
go there and see a lot of the players that I played and then coached for 2 years go and actually finally win their first banner for the program ever. So that was a nice moment too, although I wasn't necessarily a part of that team for that season, just like the build up of these players progressing and developing, and that was their vision and goal, and they were able to get that. So that was another kind of cool moment as a former coach and player to experience that in person. But yeah, I mean, the game is so beautiful and it brings out so many great, beautiful moments
Yep.
from the U level all the way up to, working with adults.
Well,
Those are some of the fondest.
and you see, like, and you kind of touched on it, and I saw it today or this summer, which was like, I mean, really cool. So like, of course, I was kind of talking about like everyone likes to score, right? You see, like when that U8 girl scores a goal, and she like, well, she's so excited, and then like you add, like, say, hey, what's the score, right? Doesn't know, but like you see that excitement that you get, right? And no matter what, I don't care how old you are, seeing like people still get excited over scoring goals is something that will never get like old to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like so much the goal celebrations as much as it is that initial like, what do you do when you just score? Like, what's the yell, or do you run? I've noticed a lot, especially on the women's side, and it's the men and women's side, right? Women, when they score, they gravitate together and they hug each other. We did it. Men run away from each other and they're like, get away from me. I want to
Right.
be on my own. And why we do that, why it's like that, I don't know. But just seeing like that initial emotion, boom, of jolt of like, I did it. Um, I think that just never gets old. Never gets old. So we're getting ready to wrap down, wind up, however you want to look at wrap up, wind down. That's how it goes. Um, but I want to ask one final question. And although you're still fairly early in the coaching realm, under 10 years, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe this isn't the best answer, or maybe you might not be able to give the best answer, or the answer today might be different in 5 years. But from your first year coaching, your first times, standing on the sideline to right now, after we just spoke about you finishing up a varsity reserve training session today, right? What are some things, or how have you grown, and at least in one way? And what's one thing you would tell that sophomore in college that was helping out on varsity? What's one thing you would tell her?
Oh man. Yeah, that was that's a loaded one. There's so many ways you could take this. Um I would probably tell her that the biggest thing to focus on is self-confidence, in a
Okay.
sense of being able to put yourself in situations and ask questions, and uh in a sense of just one, knowing that you're capable of doing it, and the self-doubt is really what's eliminating you from not only opportunities but also to develop as a coach, and not to get the best out of the players or the environment that you're privileged to coach and mentor in. So for me, a lot of it is self-doubt. Even, you asked me to be on this podcast, I was like, I think you can find other better people,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just
Yeah.
that initial self-doubt.
Yeah.
So for me to be confident in that this is something I want to pursue, and I'm going to have to pursue it in a way where it's kind of end all be all, and I'm going to absorb and ask and listen to all these coaches in all these different environments, and put myself in those uncomfortable positions. I think if I would have done that earlier on, I would have gained a little bit more knowledge, and who knows kind of where I'd be at this point, maybe still here. But I think for me, it's just overcoming that battle of self-doubt,
Okay.
and saying that maybe I can't coach at this level because of XYZ, or because my playing career was not Division 1, it was at this
Right.
level. So I think just as a young coach, if you really want to pursue it, and don't let your own worst enemy, yourself, get in the way, and know that you can make an impact whatever level you're coaching at. And that's like the beauty of being a coach, is the impact that you can make, and just really buying into that privilege.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to be honest. I don't think I want to add anything after that, because that's a really great place to end it. Um, I see that all the time, right? Confidence is so huge, and self doubt can legit take you out of your own thing. So I think that's very important. Um, well, Debbie, is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up?
I just want to thank you for, one, having me on, but also just the work that you're doing within your community, and for all the players. It has this holistic approach to them as people, and then players, and I think it's awesome when you can find people that have the heart to put in the work to create those environments and opportunities and resources for them to grow as young people and players. And I think we need more of that, especially when you think about in like urban areas and different kind of demographics. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing and what you're building to do within your community. I think we need more coaches willing to do that, and kind of change the youth level within the United States.
For sure. Well, and that's why we connected, right? Because we both have similar goals and aspirations, and how we want to change the game and how we see it. And it's, unfortunately or fortunately, it's us that has to do it, right? We're past the point where we can keep talking. It's either you're going to do it or shut up and let someone else do it.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, all right. Well, Debbie, thank you. You're thanking me. I want to thank you for being a guest, because without you, this podcast doesn't happen. For all of our listeners, I want to thank you for listening. This is season 5. Debbie Pekel, who is Bob Jones University assistant coach. We want to thank you, and we will catch you on the next episode of the No Stress Midwest podcast. Everyone have a good one.